Banks are going to war with stablecoin companies on Capitol Hill right now. Banks are extremely worried about the yield stablecoin companies are able to offer. How can banks compete? You're talking about hundreds of billions of dollars over the next few years. What is this going to mean to consumers? Brian Armstrong is going to break down what banks are trying to do, trying to relitigate what's already been litigated. Let's go ahead and better understand this. And then we're also going to get into a ton of information. I thought this is a great and funny clip that Coinbase put out about this exact situation. We also have Citibank token services clearing to provide 24/7 instant cross-border payments between institutional clients in the US and UK. You do see Citi's going to be speaking at Ripple Swell. You start to wonder, is there more to the story here? We're going to talk about that, but let's get in here first with Brian Armstrong, check and see what's going on at Capitol Hill.
You probably all know that we got the Genius Act already passed into law for stablecoins, which is great. The next step is we've got to get market structure passed. And I've actually never been more bullish on this getting through. We've already seen strong bipartisan support in the House. Now it's being deliberated in the Senate. This has not stopped the banks from coming in and trying to relitigate issues that were already settled in the Genius Act. In particular, they're trying to ban rewards on stablecoins, even though this is already settled into law. And we're making sure that the Senate knows that bailing out the big banks, which are having record profit margins at the expense of the American consumer, is not going to fly. That would be a foolish thing to do.
Bailing out the big banks at the expense of the American consumer. Just another Monday, right? Just another Tuesday. They can't do this, could they? Of course they can. They've done it for decades. Banks have a ton of lobby groups and lawyers and all of these people that fund these campaigns. I'm sure they can, I'm sure they will, and I'm sure they're going to try to do everything they can to stop this.
Politically, because there's 50 million Americans like you who have now used crypto, and they want to make sure that they can actually earn more money with their money. Who'd have thought? So visit standwithcrypto.org if you want to help and support. We'd love your help in contacting senators and congresspeople. Make sure we get market structure passed and preserve rewards on stablecoins. Thanks.
All right, preserving rewards on stablecoins. So like this, just to give you some additional information here, when you have a savings account, if you've ever gone into your savings account and look at what your bank offers you, like the base rate, it's usually like 0.25%, maybe even less than that. And sometimes people invest in bonds and those types of things. And those can range depending on when you buy those bonds from a few percent to 4 or 5%. If you're lucky to get, higher paying bonds, obviously is going to give you more than lower paying bonds. But when you're talking about stablecoin issuers and companies, they can offer sometimes 5 to 15%. So how do banks compete? Look at this. Aave, 2 to 14% APY established. Curve, 2 to 19%. Binance, Earn, and Nexo, 6 to 14%. Ondo offers 4 to 6%. Ethena, USDE, 10 to 20%. And the list goes on and on and on. Coinbase even offers you like 4 or 5%. And how these institutions or how they are able to offer this to you is often lending and borrowing. Most basic platform yield comes from lending stablecoins out to traders and DeFi users. Basically, they're taking your tokens, depending on what platform it is, and they're lending them out, and that's how you're getting that yield. Some of this is a little bit more concerning and comes with a lot more risk, but then if you're working with some highly regulated companies, this is going to be the norm going forward. So how do banks compete, right? Offering you 0.25%, but maybe Coinbase is offering you 5, or some other place that you trust is offering you 10. Are you really going to leave your money in the bank and have it earn that 0.25%, or would you rather earn that higher yield? Of course, got to talk with a financial advisor and all of those things to make sure that what you're doing is correct, but that is the mindset for people, and this is the issue.
Can we actually take that part out of the Clarity Act?
Which part?
The part that allows for crypto rewards?
We've been working on this bill for months.
I know.
And we've already signed that part into law.
Yes, I know.
And now you're trying to undo the law?
It sounds so much worse when you put it like that.
And you already said allowing crypto rewards was fine with you.
I said that?
Yes, we definitely talked about how more reward options are better for customers.
But did we talk about the community banks?
What about them?
Well, I'm worried stablecoins will threaten their bank deposits.
Actually, there's no significant link between stablecoin adoption and community bank deposit outflows, so I'm not...
Think about the community banks. This is about protecting consumers.
Really?
You can either have crypto rewards or you can protect our monopoly.
Sorry, what?
Sorry, I meant protection for consumers.
Okay, so if crypto rewards are bad for customers, should we also ban your credit card rewards too?
Well, those are different.
How so?
They just are.
There's the argument. There's the argument. All right, so where is the Clarity Act right now? Clarity Act was passed by the House in July with broad bipartisan support, but but is currently awaiting advancement in the Senate, where the path forward is complicated, but competing bills and ongoing committee negotiations. Current status: the House of Representatives passed Clarity Act 294-134 in July 2025. The bill is now in the Senate Banking Committee, but its progress has slowed as the committee considers alternative proposals such as Responsible Financial Innovation Act, RFIA, which could give more regulatory discretion to the SEC. That's what we don't want, right? There's uncertainty over whether the Senate will pass the Clarity Act as is or make amendments or push it through on its own version. So if the House passes something and it goes to the Senate, if the Senate doesn't mess with it and votes on it as the House has passed it, that could go straight to the president's desk. But when they start considering amendments and they start changing things, that's where it's going to need to go back to the House, even if it passes the Senate. So we're going to have to, see how all of this plays out. You're gonna need 60 votes to get this through. So you will need bipartisan support. And I do think there's a lot of Democratic people in the Senate that wanna be a part of the innovation for America and the solutions for Americans. I definitely believe that. I know Republicans have been championing this for quite a long time. I think this gets done. Just need to figure out all this other stuff. Okay, let's talk about this. Bank XRP. Citi will integrate its blockchain platform Citi Token Services with USD clearing to provide 24/7 cross-border payments between banks and institutional clients. Citi is also going to be speaking at Swell 2025. Here is Ryan Rugg. Actually, she's the head of digital assets at Citi. So they're not sending like her assistant or, some lower end manager. They're sending the head of digital assets at Citi. The person, the decision maker, the person who is in charge. That's who's going to speak at Swell. That is pretty juicy. And of course, I read you a little bit about this, but this was Citi's announcement. Citi achieves industry first, integrating Citi token services with 24/7 USD clearing. Now, it would be interesting to see if Citi, maybe this clearing had something to do with Ripple and XRP. I'm not saying it does, but it would be interesting, right? RLUSD maybe. I also thought, when it comes, we just saw the US and the UK get together on a transatlantic partnership to help infrastructure for crypto and digital assets. And the meeting was held at Downing Street in the UK, in England, right? Who was at that meeting was Coinbase, Circle, Ripple, Citi, Bank of America, and Barclays. Now, Citi just announced this between the US and the UK. So you start to wonder, is there more to the story here than we are, being told or led on to believe? The U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission, they have a joint roundtable with the CFTC to discuss regulatory harmonization. So this event was actually one of the first events we've seen of its time in 15 years, right? How many presidents have we had in the last 15 years? Several on both sides, and they haven't been able to get together. Now they are. This is historic. I love it.
But maybe if they worked in the same building, it would be a good thing. Well, here we are in the same building today, talking about how these agencies can better coordinate their activities for the benefit of markets. And what we're doing, I think quite sensibly, is to begin with a little bit of oversight, because these...
Good to see them getting together. Here's Paul Atkins, I believe at this event. Paul Atkins hails today as a pivotal moment for U.S. financial markets during the SEC and CFTC joint roundtable on regulatory harmonization. For years, the SEC and the CFTC have worked side by side, frequently at odds. Now we're forging new paths forward. Love to see this.
Today, I believe, marks a turning point in the history of American financial markets. For too long, the SEC and the CFTC have operated in parallel lanes, too often in conflict with each other, leaving the American public to bear the costs of duplication, delay, and uncertainty. That era is behind us. We are charting a new course, one that will solidify America's position as the world's financial leader.
It is so great to see these companies, these institutions, these regulators coming together and working together. I mean, it's a breath of fresh air. We went through the last 4 years. I can't tell you how many more gray hair I have because of the Biden administration's attack on the crypto space. That was tough. That was hard to get through. I had this update here that I thought was valuable at the end. If you made it to the end, I know some of you own Stellar. Let me please.
Yeah, so it's one of our pillars. We talk about we want to be the blockchain people know and trust. Now, I have to say that when it comes to consumers and then developers and policymakers, those are three different audiences that you approach very differently. From a consumer standpoint, blockchain should just be something that is just it should be technology that they may or may not know that they're leveraging, because the ease of use in the tool that they have that's using blockchain technology doesn't make them have to have to understand that that's what they're doing. That's what we tried to do with Vibrant. That's what a lot of players out there are doing. Focus on the end user and make it simple for them. And if blockchain can be leveraged and can be used to their advantage, let's use it and let's make it there, but don't make it cumbersome for them. From the developer standpoint, what we need to do is focus on that complete ease of use. We already have a lot of documentation this year. One of the things that I think we're going to really focus on is creating more tools that are going to make it easier to develop on Stellar, so you don't have to wait through the documentation. We're going to try to focus on tooling. And then from a policymaker standpoint, we really do need to focus on the notion that decentralization is not bad. In fact, the reason why we're able to talk right now on this video is because we have that over the internet. And so we need to use that to be able to get policymakers to be comfortable with where we're at with respect to decentralization and blockchain and talk about the things that it's doing, which is pretty remarkable.
There's also a question here from Brandon Gar, and he's asking, why have you always believed in open source and why is that important? Maybe Jed, do you want to take that open source question?
Oh, sure. I've done plenty of projects that are not open source. I think for this one in particular, and for most things in this space, like being open source is super important because, again, like what we're trying to build is this open infrastructure that we want other people to use and utilize out there and like take and run with, right? And so it's just very important that we don't own it. It's very important that like really no one owns it, that where it's just this public good essentially, right? And the only way you can really trust this stuff is if it is open source, so you can like audit the code and like make sure that we're not doing anything under the covers.
All right, I'll try to bring more updates from Stellar, guys. If you want those, let me know down below. I hope you enjoyed this update about what's going on with regulation in the Congress, as well as maybe some new things to come for Citi, Ripple, and RLUSD. We'll see. Thanks so much for being here. Bye. Nothing in this video should be taken as financial advice. This is for entertainment purposes only. I am not a financial advisor. Please seek financial advice if you need it. Let's get back to the video.